All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Darnell Weeks, aka the Myers fan, and for the people in the soap community, the reason that they call me the Myers fan is because I am a huge fan of the fictional serial killer Michael Myers from the Halloween movies. Um, anyway, but we're not here to talk about Michael Myers. We're here to talk about one of my favorite soap operas, As the World Turns. It came out in 1956 and it was canceled in 2010, 1 year after Guiding Light. I think a year and exactly a day shy after Guiding Light. I want to let you know right now, I'm a huge fan of soap operas, especially this one. For anybody that's listening, if you don't like it, simply tune out of it. If you are going to be rude, I will simply block you. This is for the people that do care what I think about As the World Turns. As I said, it premiered in 1956, and I believe I started watching in 2004. I think November of 2004 to be specific, because one of the first things I remember is that there was a scene where this Hispanic girl was in Al's diner and she was being harassed, and then Gwen, played by Jen Landon, who's the daughter of Michael Landon, she comes in there and she dumps milkshakes on their head. That's one of the first scenes that I remember watching. I'm just in love with this show. It had the best acting. Shout out to Michael Park. Shout out to Martha Byrne. Shout out to everybody that just did their thing. There was a guy that played Aaron Snyder. Let me look him up real quick, see what his name is. Okay, so he was played by a guy named Agim Kaba. He was great. He was very good on there. Then you had Holden Snyder, played by John Hensley. I mean, the soap opera was so good. Anyway, so like I said, one of the first scenes that I saw was a Hispanic woman being harassed by two white women. I don't know if the harassment was racially motivated. I have no idea. I'm not trying to say it was. I'm merely describing what they look like. But anyway, as I was saying, Jennifer Landon, her character Gwen, came in there and dumped milkshakes on them. So I thought that that was cool. Very awesome scene because she stood up for the girl. That was very cool. And that was in, I think, about October, November of 2004. One of the next storylines I remember is when Gwen was beefing with her sister. She didn't know it was her sister at the time, but she was beefing with her sister, Carly Snyder, played by Maura West. And one of the craziest storylines I remember was when they were fighting over a baby. I think they were fighting over a baby or something like that, over who was going to have custody of the baby. And, I think Carly drugged Gwen to try to make it look like Gwen fell asleep so that she could convince the judge to take the baby away from her and give it to her, meaning Carly. And I'm like, Wait a minute. Wait a second here. What the hell? Did you just drug another human being? Like, are you kidding me right now? You drugged another human being just to get the baby away from her? Oh my goodness, this soap opera right here, let me tell you, this was some of the best writing I have ever seen. Then we have other great characters like Paul Ryan, played by Roger Howarth, and Roger Howarth was at least the Paul Ryan that I got to see, because other people have played Paul Ryan. And as I stated before, I didn't start watching the show until about October, November 2004. So by that time, Roger Howarth was already there as Paul Ryan, because he had come in, I think they said on the internet, I think it was like July 7th, 2003, was when he started playing Paul Ryan, and he did a good job. I'm trying to figure out, did he look better with long hair or short hair? But Paul was always very sinister. He had a very sinister nature about him, and I like that. One of my favorite storylines with Paul was when he was trying to convince Jennifer that her baby was dead. Jennifer, of course, she was played by Jennifer Farron, but on the show her name was Jennifer Munson. Then there was another storyline where he was supposed to marry Emily Stewart, and she's played by Kelly Minigan Hensley. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And he was going to leave her. He was going up there on the mountain or whatever it was to leave her. And this is in, I believe, December of 2005. And I was watching it with my grandma at the time. And I told my grandma I knew Emily Stewart was going to shoot Paul. I said, Grandma, she's going to shoot him. I could just tell by the way she was acting. I knew she was going to pull out a gun and shoot him. And I think, as a matter of fact, I think she called him a son of a bitch before she shot him. So she shot him once, and he fell off the cliff or off the bluff or whatever you call it, and she thought he was dead. And then I remember Meg Snyder, played by Marie Wilson, she had to nurse him back to health. And Paul wanted everybody to think he was dead, and I remember Jennifer saying, of course you wanted everybody to think you were dead, because you do that. You know, you make people think that other people are dead. That's what you do. So, yeah, it had a bunch of good storylines. Another great storyline that I like is when Emily Stewart kidnapped Dusty Donovan. And I think his name is Grayson McCalf. I don't know how you pronounce that. But I know I just butchered his name. And if he's listening to this, I'm sorry about that. But anyway, she kidnapped him. And I think that this was in February 2006. I think what happened was, he got a text message or something from somebody telling him to meet them somewhere. And then what happened was, when he got there, when Dusty Donovan got there, he looked up and he said, "You." And when he said "you," they really didn't show who it was. So the next day, not the next day, but a couple of days later, I guess they revealed that it was Emily. They might have done it the next day, I don't know. But the person basically knocked him across the head with this blunt object. They basically, excuse my expression, but they knocked the shit out of him. They did. And so basically Emily kept him tied up for a number of weeks. And she got caught, of course, and then they didn't get to spend that much time together, Dusty and Jennifer, because Dusty was in love with her. They didn't get to spend that much time together because Jennifer, what happened was she died of a pneumonia-like illness in July of 2006. And they got married, basically and essentially while she was on her deathbed, which is kind of romantic, but at the same time kind of morbid. And once again, they had some brilliant storylines. And there was this one storyline, speaking of July of 2006, where a serial killer, if you want to call it that, because technically a serial killer kills people and then they stop for a while and then they start again. But this killer would kill people every couple days. So I guess by definition, they would be a mass murderer. I guess this person was a mass murderer. I'm going to try and look that up on the internet and see what the difference between the two are. Because technically, I don't think this person would be defined as a serial killer. I think they would be more defined as a mass murderer. So hold on one second. I'll be right back. Yeah, see, technically, this person that was killing would be defined as a mass murderer, because serial killers have a cooling off period. They kill 3 or more and then they might stop for a while. But this person killed every other day, and technically a serial killer can do that. But on the internet, when I looked it up, it said that they normally do this in a single event. And this all took place over a couple of days at a camp, at a summer camp in 2006. So technically, the Oakdale slasher, because that's where As the World Turns take place. It takes place in a town called Oakdale, which is in Illinois. And the Oakdale slasher killed a bunch of people at a summer camp, which is obviously a ripoff of Friday the 13th, but still my favorite storyline. By the way, another storyline that they had that was okay was when I think something happened to Aaron Snyder and Allison Stewart had to nurse him back to health. Back then she was being played by somebody else, because like I said, this was in November of 2004, and Marnie Schulenberg didn't get there until about March of 2007, and she would play Allison Stewart from 2007 until the show's conclusion in 2010. And I want to give a shout out to Marnie Schulenberg and her family at this time, because she is battling breast cancer, and that's common knowledge in the soap community. So, Marnie, my thoughts and prayers are with you, and may the Most High be with you at this time. She did a wonderful job playing Allison. I remember when Marnie Schulenberg was playing Allison Stewart, and there was a storyline where she slept with somebody. I don't remember who it was, but Aaron Snyder knew she slept with this person. I think it might have been Mick Dante, and Mick Dante, he was played by Tom Pelfrey, who also played what's his name, Jonathan Randall on Guiding Light. And what happened was James Stenbeck brainwashed Mick Dante into thinking that Mick was James. It's a long story. Anyway, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. I could be here all day and all night talking about my favorite storylines from As the World Turns. Like I said, I started watching it in about November 2004, and I watched it all the way up until the conclusion, which was 2010. Again, I want to give my best wishes to Marnie Schulenberg and her family during this difficult time. Thank you for allowing me to talk about As the World Turns. My name is Darnell Weeks, aka the Myers Fan. I want to thank you guys for listening. By the way, I did meet Robert Newman back in October of 2019. I met him and I interviewed him for my YouTube channel. Very nice guy. I definitely hope to do the same thing with As the World Turns. I've been dying to get somebody from As the World Turns, and I hope that becomes a possibility one of these days. I want to thank you guys once again for listening. Thank you very much. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to add, by the way. When I talked about the Oakdale slasher, the mass murderer, it turned out to be the sister of a character named Maddie Coleman, and Maddie Coleman was played by the very talented Alex Chando, or Alexandra Chando. She made her debut on As the World Turns in July of 2005, and she was the sister of Henry Coleman, and Henry was played by Trent Dawson. So yeah, it turned out that the killer was Maddie and Henry's sister, Eve Browning, and Eve was played by Bonnie Root. And it turns out that the motive was that Eve thought that Maddie was trying to seduce her husband, when in reality, her husband was trying to rape Maddie. So, yeah, that was like really sick and twisted, but a very interesting storyline. Very talented actresses. That's basically the only other thing I wanted to say about this. Again, my thoughts are with Marnie Schulenberg at this time. So, thank you again for listening.